my name is James Gwilliam and I'm currently stuck behind a bus. Now, that's a weird intro. I didn't think I'd be saying that in a video, but nevertheless, today, as you've seen by the title, I will be going through my sort of advice and my way, as such, for you guys to try and find the perfect first car. Now, some of you guys may not have passed your test yet. I am planning on doing a video where I say how, give you some tips on how to help you pass your driving test. However, for this video, we're going to assume that you have passed and you are looking for that first car. Now, there's going to be quite a few steps to this video. It's quite good being stuck behind a bus, actually, for video purposes. It's much easier to speak to you guys. Anyway, bus aside, the first step is quite a self-explanatory one. Now, the first step is the budget. The first thing you need to do is think about how much you got to spend on a car. Now, I'm going to say a few things because it's not just as simple of I've got £1,000 to spend on a car, or I've got £5,000 to spend on a car. It's not that simple, because there is a little thing, especially in the UK, called insurance. Now, obviously, car insurance means that if you are in the unfortunate event of an accident, this covers you in said accident. And the best type of insurance I would recommend is getting fully comprehensive, which means that both your car and whichever car you unfortunately seem to make contact with will be completely covered by your insurance. Now, it's compulsory to have insurance in the UK, so that's why you need to make sure you put this in your budget. So let's say you have got £1,000 on your car. Just be wary that there is going to be more money to spend on insurance and also on road tax if you are to drive the car in the UK. Now, if you're not sure how much your road tax is going to be, we'll get onto insurance in one of the later steps. Then you can check on the UK's government website for the UK. I'm not sure about other countries, but since I am in the UK, you can check on the UK government website. Just type in vehicle tax rates or something like that, and it should come up as to what you need. And really that's sort of it for the first step, is making sure you know what budget you've got to spend, how much you're going to be comfortable spending, and make sure your car is affordable. You don't really want to be in any debt or any financial trouble for a car. So if it's a case of you're passed but you can't quite afford everything on your car yet, please do not take out a loan or anything. Save up a little bit of money. It's going to be so much more worth it if you wait and you can actually afford what you're spending on your first car. The next step of finding your perfect first car is another simple one, actually, and this step is your preferences. Now, by that, what I mean is that you need to make sure that you know things you want on your car, like creature comforts. For example, electric windows. You might want leather seats. You might want adjustable seats. You might want an adjustable steering wheel. All these added options, because I would recommend, obviously, if you're getting a new car, completely different, you can choose your option spec from the factory. However, most people will be buying a used car as their first car, and personally, that is what I would recommend doing. So you need to think about things like electric windows. You need to think about things like seats. All of these things are just personal touches, really. It won't really affect the drivability of your car. All it will affect is the comfort and how comfortable you are in your car. And obviously, just to run through my car a little bit, as I am sat in my first car, I thought it would be a great place to discuss finding a perfect first car, and a video would be in my first car. I have electric front windows. I don't have electric rear windows, but it wasn't something I was too fussed about, so that didn't really bother me. We also, as I'm on country lanes here, I don't really know where I'm going. I'm just driving. I also have adjustable mirrors, but they are manual. You might want electrically adjustable mirrors. You might want a touch screen. Mine doesn't have one. So my car isn't very highly spec'd from factory. However, it's just personal preference, really, with the spec of the car. By preferences, it's purely just making sure that your car is exactly what you want it, and you're not going to be going, oh, I wish I could get this on my car, because when you're trying to find your car, it's the perfect thing you need to be looking at, and make sure you don't regret anything you're doing in the future. So now you have the perfect foundation of trying to find that perfect first car for you. What is next? Now the next one is probably the bit that people like the most, and that is actually looking for the car. Now you're going to be going on many different websites, many different online is your best place to look for a car. Going around dealerships is obviously an option, so you can drive around to your local used car lot or anything like that and try and look for your first car depending on your budget. But if your budget is restricted like mine was, and like a lot of my friends are, and a lot of most people budgets are going to be quite restricted, your best place to be looking is going to be online. Now I would recommend places like Facebook Marketplace is a great place to find cheaper cars. Auto Trader is a great place to look if you've got slightly higher end budget, and then also you've got everything in between with places like eBay as well is another good place to look for cars. Also independent websites, dealerships should theoretically mostly have websites, and that's another best place to look. Now obviously you need to take your budget into account in this and your preferences into account, so those first two steps are crucial to make sure you understand before you start looking at cars online. So let's say you have found your perfect car, you've gone through your budget, you've gone through what you want on it, and you found that car online. What is the next option? Now the next step is, especially if you're a young driver in the UK, probably the most depressing step of them all, because insurance is very, very, very expensive in the UK. I genuinely think it's wrong, especially for younger drivers, because we can't really afford the insurance rates, but it's something that we can't change, we can't do anything about, and that's why insurance is so important when you're looking for your first car. And this step is getting quotes. Now I would recommend going straight for comparison websites. You can go insurer by insurer, but your first port of call, in my opinion, 100% should be comparison sites. Now I don't know of many comparison sites, but the one I used personally was Compare the Market, I believe it was. I don't really remember too much, because once you've used that comparison site to get some quotes that you like, if you are a young driver, you'll probably need a telematics box, also known as a black box, and it will reduce your premium significantly. However, it can be quite annoying to drive with, and I will be doing more videos about black boxes coming in the future. So once you've found a quote you like on a comparison website and you like the price, the car is good, the first thing I would do is then think, right, look at your budget again, look at the preferences. Is there anything you missed out on? Can you afford this? And should you be paying your insurance monthly or annually? It is slightly more expensive monthly. There are benefits, sort of, yeah, the cost is spread out, it's much easier to pay for. It also does build up a credit score. However, it does mean you obviously owe the insurance company money, and some people might not be happy with this. So paying it annually or monthly is purely on personal preference and purely on what your personal situation is. I paid my first year all in one go, and every year since then has been monthly. And again, it's just personal preference. If you are a young driver and you've just passed your test, this first year of insurance will hurt. 100% will be very, very, very expensive, and you'll have a black box. But alas, everything will be okay after the first year, as your premiums will drop. Hopefully you'll have a 1 year's no claims bonus, and most people should be able to afford to get their black box off and not drive under those restrictions after the first year of insurance. So get an insurance quote from a comparison site, and then potentially, if you want, going straight to that insurer themselves, getting on the phone and saying, what can you do for me on a quote, get a better price. That's your next port of call, and that is quite possibly the most important step of this whole process, as we are in the UK. Now this is quite possibly the most practical step of the process. You have found your perfect car online, you've done the insurance quote, you can afford it, everything is happy, everything is good. What should you do now? The next obvious step is to go and look at the car. Hopefully you should be looking locally, because if your car is hundreds of miles away and that car isn't the right car for you, then it's going to be a very sad trip home. The first thing I should say is, when you are going to look at a car, always make sure you have a contingency plan. Make sure you can get home, or make sure you can get back to wherever you're going. If that car isn't right for you, you will probably have to go and view a couple of cars before you find the perfect one for you, because some cars just aren't right for what you want. Some cars might have too much work to do to them, some cars just might not be in the condition you want, and you should not be disheartened by finding a car that isn't right for you and going and look at it, because the best thing you can do is walk away from a car that isn't right. That is my one biggest advice, and I have actually messed up doing this, trying to dabble in a bit of buying some tennis from cars, and I will tell you guys some stories about that in a future video. But the best thing and the most advice that I've learned firsthand is make sure you walk away from a car if it isn't right. Don't just get it for cheaper or anything like that and say, oh, I've got to have this car. Take your mind off that, because you definitely want to make sure the car is right, and you definitely want to walk away from a car if it's not right. So if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this video, it's walk away from the car if it's not right for you. And let's say the car is right for you and everything's good, we move on to the next step, which I have written down. I've written it down in a very fancy way. What is this? Finalising, that's what I've called it. There you go, happy days. And our finalising is as simple as it sounds, really. It's just making sure all of the paperwork is done. I don't know why I'm starting sentences halfway through my current ones. I mean, it's not very professional and presenter-like of me, but, you know, it is what it is. So making all your paperwork complete, basically making sure everything's gone through, everyone knows what's up, and everyone knows that you are now going to be driving your first car. Now, there's a few things that you need to be doing in this finalisation step. It's not just as simple as some people might think, especially here in the UK. The first thing, most private sellers of vehicles will require cash. It's not the case with every single one. However, I would recommend, especially if you can, to make sure you have cash ready when you're going to look at the car. You're probably going to need to pay for the car with cash. If you can buy from a dealer and they offer finance and that's better for you, that's great, go do it. But most private sellers will want cash for their car, so that's something to bear in mind. Now, when you've purchased your car, the first thing you should be filling out is a document in the UK called the V5C. Now, this is a registration document, and unfortunately this isn't proof of ownership, and I'll move on to what you should do about that in a second. However, the V5C should be filled out. The old owner needs to fill in their details, you fill in your details. Also put your details on the new keeper slip. Make sure you take that off and you keep that home. That is your V5 until the DVLA send you your new V5 with your name and address on it. This is very important. Don't lose this green slip. Make sure you keep it safe. So that's the V5 done. So that is proof of registration as well. And also you will be the registered keeper of your car. Now, it isn't proof of ownership, like I said. And another thing I recommend you doing is draft up just a small, quick legal document. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't need to hire anyone to write this. Just make sure there's a document that both people have signed to say, a bit like a receipt, really, just so everyone knows that you've bought that car and that car is now yours, and you have proof that you bought that car and that car is under your ownership. Now, this will be very important if any disputes happen or anything bad happens like that at all. And it's just very nice to have a bill of sale and or a receipt when you're buying a car. So now the car is yours. What do you need to do if you want to drive it? The first thing obviously you need to do is get on with your insurer. Now, you should as we navigate a country lane, I need to learn how to concentrate while I'm driving. There you go. Thank you for pulling over, very much appreciated. And we continue on. So where was I? Insurance, yes. Please make sure when you do an insurance quote that you start your quote on the day you intend to drive the car. If the car is good and everything goes well, then you need to make sure after you've bought the car and everything has gone fine, that your insurance starts on that day, on the same day you're driving the car home. Because if you drive the car home without insurance and you get caught, you'll get points on your license, nothing's going to go bad, you're going to get a fine, and it's going to be terrible for every single person involved in the process. So make sure you've insured when you drive the car home. Another thing you need to do in the UK to make sure you can drive the car home is tax it. Now, as I said earlier about the road tax rates, find them on the government website. And because of technology and today's day and age has moved on, You can also tax your vehicle online. It's quite simple. Again, if your vehicle is not taxed, it is not legal to be sat on the road, and it's very important that you have taxed your vehicle as well as insured it before you drive it home. Now, once you have taxed your vehicle, either for 6 or 12 months, and once you have insured your vehicle, then as we let this very peculiar looking farmy looking device drive past us, hopefully you get a clip of this in my side mirror as we let it past. Go, as if I can go through the mud. Yep, there we go in. Way, look at that. Country road driving, make sure you're confident with that. So yeah, you're taxed, you're insured, you've bought the car, you've got the V5, that's been sent off to the DVLA, you've kept your green keeper slip. Now what does that mean? That means you can go on to the final step. You just enjoy driving, get going, get out on the road, get in your car, enjoy your car, and enjoy the fact you can now drive in what hopefully is your perfect first car. And that's it really, that's it from me. You've gone all the way from passing your test, you've passed your test, you want to buy a car, you want to find your perfect first car, and you've gone through the whole process with me, and now you are driving your car. Now as you're driving, you shouldn't be watching YouTube, so in that case, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next video.